Hey everyone, Tom Caffarella here from Ocean City Development. Today we are going to be talking about how to fix and flip 3 to 5 properties per month, even if you're a newer real estate investor. And I remember going back about 10 years when I first set my goals down on paper about how many properties I wanted to do per year. I remember I was thinking big, and my goal was to do 52 properties per year. And I remember thinking in my head, wondering, I should say, whether or not that goal was actually too big, whether or not it was even remotely realistic. And again, this is when I was first starting and I had done no deals. And looking back on it, I am here to tell you that doing 3 to 5 deals per month, even for a newer investor, is very, very realistic if you follow the right steps. And today we're going to be talking about exactly what you need to do in order to follow those steps. And at the end of the day, it's really a numbers game. It's not much harder to do 1 house per month versus 2 houses per month, and 2 houses per month versus 3 houses per month if you have the right systems in place. And so I'm going to now jump into my presentation, go through it, and if you guys have any questions, let me know. All right, let me just go into here. All right, so 3 to 5 houses per month, like we already talked about. The really good news as a real estate investor, as a newer real estate investor starting out on day one, is that motivated sellers, who are the ones that end up selling to real estate investors, don't care how long you've been in business. So the reality is, this is both a good thing and a bad thing depending upon what point of the cycle you're in. As a newer real estate investor, it's a great thing that the seller doesn't care. As an experienced real estate investor, this means that you still have to hustle just as hard as the newer person to get that deal under contract. So when you market for and meet a motivated seller at their property, they are not going to be more interested or give you a competitive advantage because you've done 200 houses versus the next person who's never done a deal before. And so this means for any newer investors out there, they will have the same chance of getting to a motivated seller that an experienced investor will have. Okay? So this means that whether you're a brand new investor that's never done a deal before or an experienced investor, the rules are exactly the same. And so it is not the type of career where you're building up this streamline, this pipeline, that once you're in business for 5 years, you're going to automatically wake up and get deals. Nope, that's not the case. Again, that's good for newer investors, not so great for experienced investors, but that is just what the reality is. And the steps, by the way, to generate motivated seller leads are exactly the same no matter how long you've been in business. So let's talk about how to do this. How do we flip 3 to 5 houses per month, even if you're just starting out? Step one, the most important step, is you need to get that great deal. You need to get that discounted property. And in order to do that, you need to generate motivated seller leads to get one-on-one appointments with sellers. So you need to be the one prospecting to and meeting with sellers in their living rooms and making them offers. And there's a bunch of different ways that you can do that, but that's step one. And this is by far, in a way, the most important step. You cannot make serious money without marketing to motivated sellers and going into their living rooms, talking to them, and getting them to sign contracts. So that's step one. Step two is you have to make the right offer. Okay, so in order to make money in this business, you need to get discounted deals. And the more discounted deals, the more discounted the deal is, the more money you're going to make on the deal. And so the formula that's a pretty standard formula that we use to calculate what we call our max allowable offer is 70% of the after repair value minus repairs. Okay, so this is the formula right here, and I'm going to walk through the numbers in this formula really quickly. Actually, let me back up. Let me just make sure. Let me just walk through a theoretical scenario for you just so that it makes very clear sense. So the after repair value is what the property is worth after you have fully renovated it. And so when you are running comps for your subject property on an after repair value basis, you are looking for the most similar property in that neighborhood that has been renovated. And let's say that that after repair value ends up being $500,000. So what you'll do using this formula is you'll take the $500,000, multiply it by the 70%, and then subtract out repairs. Now again, on this scenario, let's assume that the repairs are $100,000. You would then multiply the 500,000 times 0.7 and then subtract the 100,000. So it would be 500,000 times 0.7, which is 350,000, minus 100, which will get you to an offer of $250,000. And the reason that we call this our max allowable offer formula is because this is the maximum amount that we can offer. So we can't pay $251,000 for this property. And so we want to pay $250,000 max or under. And now, of course, if you get this property for $240,000 or $230,000 or $220,000, you're just going to make more money on the deal. So you want to shoot for at least 70% of ARV minus repairs, and then anything below that is just gravy. All right, so we talked about after repair value is what the property is worth fully renovated. You do need to get really good at looking at comps as a real estate investor. So you do need to know values. That you don't need to know values just off the top of your head, but you do need to know values quickly when you're running comps. Okay? All right, so calculating repairs. Calculating repairs is also an important part of figuring out what your offer should be. And we have a tool that you can go at directly at www.oceancitybudget.com, which will actually show you exactly how we calculate our repairs on our property. And if you look at this sheet, what you'll notice is that we break properties up into small, medium, and large. And right up there in the corner there, small being 800 to 1400 square feet, medium being 1400 to 2000 square feet, and large being greater than 2000 square feet. And so when you go on this website at www.oceancitybudget.com, what you're going to see is that depending on whether the property is small, medium, or large, will determine what the value of everything is. So, for example, if you're putting in new windows on a small house, it's going to be $1,700 versus it will be $2,700 on a medium house and $3,400 on a large house. And again, these are our prices. So your prices could be a little bit different in your market depending upon how much your contractors cost, how much supplies cost in your area. But this is a general guideline that you can use. Okay? So you need to know what the after repair value is. You need to know what the actual repairs will cost. Another important point relating to calculating repairs is that as an investor, you need to get really comfortable with focusing on the major important repairs. Now, it's going to be easy to get caught up in the small things when it comes to repairs. The problem is that the best deals don't wait, okay? So anytime that you're pretty confident on a deal, you want to lock it up. And so if you truly have a great deal on your hands, what you have to keep in mind is that a small plus or minus on your renovation will not matter, okay? So if you have a great deal and you calculated out that your repairs were going to be $50,000 and your budget ends up being $55,000, that should not make any difference on the deal whatsoever if you got it at a big enough discount. Now, if you didn't get it at a big enough discount to start out, and then your repairs go over budget by 10 or 15%, then you're going to be in trouble. So it's really important to focus on getting that great deal up front, getting a reasonable repair budget, and then making your offer. However, if you're really unsure, so if you're extremely unconfident about any specific major repair, you should get somebody in there to give you a quote prior to buying the property, okay? And so these are for larger items that you don't run into on a day-to-day basis, whether it be a major foundational issue or a septic system that failed, something that could potentially be a large swing. Now again, whether or not you can, keep the bedrooms or bathrooms the same color that they originally were, you don't want to get caught up in a very small item like that. But if it is a large item, you want to make sure that you do have a good idea of what the repair is going to cost you before closing on the property. So we already went over the first example. This example here is pretty much the same, that if you have an after repair value of $300,000 and your repairs are $50,000, you are going to take $300,000 times 0.7 to get you to $210,000, and then subtract out the $50,000 in repairs to get you a max allowable offer of $160,000, which you are not going to want to go above. All right, so step one was getting the deal, the most important step. Step two was calculating what your offer should be. Step three is actually financing the property, because yes, we do end up buying these properties that we put offers on. And so there's three major ways of funding deals. There is number one, using hard money. Number two, using your own capital. And number three, using commercial lenders. Okay? So these are the three main ways to do it. And let me just back up really quick on the three of those. So hard money in general, it's kind of like the wild, wild west. There is no defined what hard money should be. Like there's no defined underwriting process. Typically, hard money lenders are ex-investors that have excess capital that want to lend on real estate. So in some cases, you can find hard money lenders that will require 0% down. Sometimes they'll want 30% down. And they'll have interest rates ranging typically from 8 to 15%. Your capital is your capital. I'm sure you understand where you're at financially. And commercial lenders are banks that like to lend on fix and flip properties. Now, commercial lenders in general want to see a track record of you having profitable deals in the past in order to lend on a fix and flip deal. Even commercial lenders who specialize in fix and flip projects view them as more risky than lending on your personal home. And of course that makes sense, because somebody is more likely to walk away on a fix and flip property than they are to walk away from their own home. Okay? So step four. So we've talked about finding the deal. We've talked about calculating the offer. We've talked about funding the deal. Now you actually own the property and you have to improve the property. So let's talk about the most important steps when it comes to that. One of the biggest mistakes that people make is that, especially early on in their career, and I made this mistake early on, is that they over-renovate a property. Now, you have to keep in mind that you are not going to move into the property, okay? Again, I'll repeat that because it does bear repeating. You are not moving into these properties that you are flipping, okay? And so you have to understand that, and you have to understand that making the property the best it can possibly be is not the goal. The goal actually is to make the property get the property to the same level that the comparable properties are selling. And so when you're running your comps, you need to understand what the other properties in your neighborhood look like, what they're selling for, and get it up to that level. And see, in some neighborhoods, this may require making the property as nice as humanly possible. And in other areas, it may require that you do very little because there could be a cap on what that area sells for. And you have to understand that. Okay? One tip for getting an idea of what level you should renovate the property at is to actually go to open houses in that area. Okay? So spend a day, spend a couple hours, go to the open houses that are in that area and see what those look like. All right, the last step, getting paid, selling the property and getting paid. And, obviously this is the reason why we're doing it. This is the reason why we want to do 3 to 5 deals per month, because we get our payday at the end. And so part of that payday is selling the property for top dollar. So when we, as a real estate investor, we want to buy the property for as little as we possibly can, and we want to sell the property for as much as we can. Seems obvious, but some investors do not follow the proper steps in order to get both. And again, to get the property as discounted as possible, we need to market to motivated sellers. And to sell the property for as much as we can, we need to get as much competition on that property as we can. And let's talk about how we do that. All right? So like I said, when you buy a house, you want as little competition as you possibly can. But when you are reselling that property, you want as much demand, as much competition as possible. You want people fighting over the property. And so there's 6 really easy to follow steps on how to do this, how to get top dollar for your sale. And by the way, do not cut out any of these 6 steps. It is going to be convenient and easy to cut out some of these steps. But at the end of the day, in order to get top dollar, you need to do all 6. Number 1, and this is one that, wow, it's crazy. A lot of real estate agents even make this mistake. Now, people that all they do is sell homes make this mistake. And so, number 1 is you got to get great pictures, okay? These pictures have to be professional, okay? Do not take these pictures yourself. Do not cheap out on pictures. Pictures, when it comes to selling a property, are the most important thing. And the reason is that every single buyer, they start their search online. So what do? They look at the pictures. And the pictures determine whether or not that buyer is even going to go to your open house, even going to look at your property. And if they look bad or they kind of just look average, guess what? That day that you had the open house, if it's a nice day, your buyer is going to decide, hey, I'm going to go to the beach, I'm going to go somewhere and hang out. That property didn't look that great anyways. If the pictures are great, even if your house isn't that great, you'll get people in the door. Okay? Number 2 is stage the house. Okay? Empty houses are tough, right? Because people buy houses on emotion and the feeling that they get when they walk into the property. The buying process, it doesn't matter whether it's a house or a car or a bicycle or whatever, it's very emotional. So it's extremely important that somebody gets that right first impression when they walk through the door. Okay? The most important thing is getting pictures. Now, the second most important thing is having them get that feeling of, oh man, I can picture myself living here. And you get that by staging the home. And I put a URL up there. Let me just go back. For our recent projects. So you can take a look at what our staged pictures look like and what our pictures look like for our properties and what our staging looks like to get an idea. My partner does an incredible job staging. Incredible. All right, number 3 when it comes to selling your property for top dollar is you actually want to price it lower than what you think you're going to get, okay? So when you price a house low, you create an enormous amount of demand for that property. And buyers in this market, with how widespread the use of Zillow and the internet are, they know exactly what a property should be priced at. Now, when you price a property a little bit low, you are going to get a stampede of buyers. They're going to want your property. And the goal is to make sure that you get as many buyers into your open house as possible. And in many cases, you're going to sell that property in the first weekend, and you're going to get over what your asking price is if you do all these steps right. Step number 4, make sure it's posted everywhere online. It needs to be on your MLS. It needs to be listed online. After it's posted on MLS, you need to make sure it's on all of the other major websites. So you need to make sure it's on the MLS, on Zillow, on Trulia, on Redfin. And if you go to listhub.com, ListHub will actually send out your listing to all of these sites with one click. So I would check them out. Get good signage. Again, another mistake that many sellers make. You need activity at your open house. You need activity. You need people looking at your property. And now, signage in general doesn't necessarily attract the best buyers, because the best buyers are looking every day online. But what it does do, what signage does do, is it creates a buzz, and you really want as many people in that first open house as you can. So if you get 3 to 4, 5 more people that come to your open house because they saw an open house sign, that's going to actually drive the price up and drive the demand up for that person that is super serious. Because you want, as we have on the screen here, you want a heavily trafficked and promoted open house. And I highly recommend that you do not do any showings until the first open house. So what we typically do is, if we have a property that's ready to go on the market, we will list it on a Monday for the first open house that's going to take place Sunday at 12 to 2. So we have a full 6 days to get ramped up for that open house, to create demand, to have people drooling over the pictures, to have people getting excited, seeing the sign, getting excited for the open house. And guys, so that's really it. So thank you for watching the video today. Thank you for joining me. So like I mentioned, I mean, going back, one house a week, that's all I wanted. And now we're doing on average 2 houses per week. Okay, so we're doing about 100 fix and flips a year in the Boston market. And I'm here to tell you, it's not harder for a newbie to get in and do it. Every year, we still have to grind. We still have to promote and prospect to motivated sellers. Follow all the steps in this video. And as a newbie, you're in the same boat as I am, right? So if you have the right systems, you follow the right procedures, you can do it. So don't waste any time. Get out there, start marketing to motivated sellers, which is the first step. Get your property under contract and get your career started. All right. Thanks for watching again.